Most people on Earth would probably agree with that classic saying that marriage is the grave of life. Like once you're married, boom, freedom deleted, dreams uninstalled. But the main character of today's story, yeah, he's not rocking with that take at all. For him, marriage isn't the life ender, employment is having a job, being locked into the grind. That's the real grave of life in every way possible. This guy is Tanaka Makoto, a member of the Black Dog Guild, and for almost half of his entire life he's been stuck behind a desk, supervising adventurers' missions one after another like a background NPC that never gets logged out. Mission reports, mission approvals, mission reviews, over and over again. The grind never stops. He works so insanely hard that even when the clock has already passed midnight, he's still there, glued to his work because he genuinely doesn't have any other choice. His body is screaming for rest, his brain is fried, but complaining isn't even an option. This job is literally the only thing holding his life together right now, so he just sucks it up and keeps going. But don't get it twisted, this isn't some normal desk job where you just push papers and sip coffee. Nope, this job is anything but ordinary, and we'll get to why later. Before that though, we need to rewind and take a full walkthrough of Tanaka Makoto's life so everything actually clicks. About 10 years ago, the world experienced a massive what the hell is going on moment. Out of nowhere, mysterious structures started appearing all over the globe. No warning, no explanation. People eventually started calling these things dungeons. And as if that alone wasn't terrifying enough, these dungeons came bundled with creatures that humans couldn't even begin to comprehend. Some of them were massive, absolute units. Others were smaller, but still nightmare fuel. But one thing was crystal clear, these monsters did not come to Earth to be friendly neighbors. As soon as the dungeons started popping up everywhere, people went into full panic mode. Society instantly spiraled into chaos. Monsters began spreading across areas, and no one really knew how to get rid of them. Humans were completely unprepared. Some people tried their hardest to fight back and help others. Some just gave up and accepted their fate, figuring there was nothing they could do anyway. Thankfully, while people were exploring the dungeons out of desperation, they discovered something huge. Inside this unknown realm, there were weapons. Weapons made with technology so unfamiliar and advanced that nobody could explain how they worked. Straight up alien tech vibes. Because of this discovery, people started going into dungeons as explorers, searching for more weapons, and let's be real, mostly treasures. But obviously the dungeons weren't safe at all. Everyone knew the rule. If you stepped into a dungeon without protection, only one thing would be waiting for you at the entrance: death. No mercy. No second chances. So at first, dungeon exploration felt like an impossible dream to most people, something only insane people would even think about. However, what most people didn't know was that when the dungeons appeared, some humans awakened special powers. Actual supernatural abilities. At first, the majority of citizens didn't really understand why these chosen people were special. Like, okay, cool, but what makes them different? That confusion disappeared real quick once people actually saw them fight. These gifted individuals were dozens of times stronger than ordinary humans, absolute monsters in human form. Once society realized just how cracked these gifted people were, they eventually put the responsibility on them. These people were tasked with protecting the world, maintaining peace, and clearing as many dungeons as possible. They became humanity's frontline defenders, and unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, Tanaka Makoto awakened to that power himself. One day, while riding the train to work like usual, Tanaka accidentally overheard a man talking to someone who looked like his girlfriend. The guy was going on and on about how amazing explorers were, absolutely glazing them. To normal citizens, gifted explorers were basically superheroes, chosen by some higher power to save the world from complete chaos. Since ordinary citizens couldn't witness real dungeon battles in person, companies saw an opportunity and built streaming platforms so everyone could watch gifted people work in real time. For the past few years, there's been a massively popular dungeon exploration streaming site called DO. It gave normal people who didn't have powers a front row seat to witness the true strength of explorers through a screen. Just from how that guy on the train was acting while watching the stream, Tanaka immediately figured that this site must be insanely popular. Like almost everyone in the city was probably watching dungeon streams at this point. Of course, even though Tanaka himself is one of the gifted ones, as people in Japan call them, he's never tried streaming before and doesn't plan to. He's always been laser focused on work. Still, the idea of it kind of amazes him. While his brain is literally rotting inside the train from exhaustion, Tanaka doesn't even realize he's already arrived. When the train finally reaches Shibuya Station, Tanaka stumbles out with half-dead eyes and lazily taps his card at the gate. Even then, his curiosity about streamers is still lingering. This time, he starts wondering how much money streamers on those apps actually make. Based on how things are going, Tanaka is already losing hope and energy. He's getting older, still stuck in the same crappy job, going nowhere. And maybe, just maybe, becoming a streamer could be a new career option. A tiny bit of copium, but still. With his face looking completely drowsy, Tanaka forces himself to keep moving and head to work. After more commuting, he finally arrives at the Shibuya Underground Dungeon. After signing in, he immediately makes his way to the entrance. Right now, he's at the Shibuya Underground Dungeon. Oniwai. Before starting his mission, a small drone suddenly follows him from behind. This drone records everything and automatically sends the footage to the company. Depending on the settings, it can also stream the footage online. Since Tanaka only uses it for reporting quotas, he usually selects the Black Dog Company only option. But because he's so exhausted from desk work, Tanaka slips just as he's about to enter the dungeon. He only slept 2 hours today and hasn't been home in 2 weeks. So yeah, his body is absolutely cooked. At this point, he genuinely starts questioning why he's even doing all of this. The company he works for is a government subcontractor, which means non-stop high-difficulty missions. At this rate, Tanaka knows he'll literally die from overwork. But he's too busy to even think about quitting. And today, once again, he dives into the dungeon with a dead, empty look on his face. As he's about to enter the main entrance, his vision blurs while he tries to press the recording start button. Because he doesn't check carefully, instead of pressing the company-only option, he accidentally selects the streaming site button. Just like that, he goes live. This time Tanaka is diving into the Shibuya Underground Dungeon, one of the largest dungeons in Tokyo. He'll be working in its depths for the rest of the day. And at this moment, Tanaka has absolutely no idea that today's dungeon dive is about to completely change his life. While Tanaka works like he always does, people on the stream see everything. Completely unaware of this, he keeps doing his job as usual, while the rest of the world laughs, thinking he's insane for going solo and fully expecting him to die before the stream ends. For context, the dungeon is divided into upper, middle, lower, and lowest levels. And Tanaka, he's heading straight for the deepest level. Normally, explorers go down slowly, level by level, but Tanaka doesn't have time for that right now. Still looking like an actual walking corpse, with eye bags so dark they straight up look like he caught a right hook to the face, Tanaka decides he's done wasting time. His plan? Skip all the levels and just yeet himself straight to the very bottom of the dungeon in one go. No warm-up, no easing into it, just straight to the deepest layer like a man with nothing left to lose. But right before he jumps, that familiar wave of depression creeps back in. You know that feeling when your body is still standing but your soul already clocked out 3 business days ago? Yeah, that. The thought of just being in his bed, wrapped in blankets, not thinking about missions, quotas, deadlines, or this absolute nightmare of a job, keeps looping in the back of his mind. It's living rent-free in his head. The exhaustion is so bad that Tanaka can't even keep it bottled up anymore. He straight up starts venting out loud, muttering that all he wants is to rest for a bit, just a little rest. He even says that if he could get 2 hours of sleep today, he'd be the luckiest man alive, like he just won the lottery or something. Because he fully believes no one is listening, Tanaka doesn't bother holding back. He thinks he's just talking to the dungeon walls, trauma dumping into the void. What he doesn't realize is that the entire world is literally locked in, staring at him through a screen, waiting to see what he does next. The vibes hit so hard that viewers genuinely feel his pain. And then it happens. His phone absolutely loses its mind. Calls start flooding in non-stop, back to back, like his phone is getting DDoSed. This makes Tanaka pause for a second because realistically, he barely has anyone saved in his contacts. Just some company numbers and a few old friends he hasn't talked to in forever. He doesn't even use social media, so he's confused but not curious enough to care. In his head, he's like, yeah, if I answer that, it's probably just people roasting me or yelling at me. So he decides to ignore all of it. Full ghost mode. With that, Tanaka locks back in and continues his mission. No hesitation, no fear, just pure whatever happens happens energy. He steps forward and jumps straight into the lowest level of the dungeon. At the center of the Shibuya Underground Dungeon is a massive well. And this well, it's basically a fast travel straight to hell. If you jump down it, you skip everything and land directly at the lowest level in one shot. Almost no explorer would ever do something this reckless because it's insanely dangerous. One miscalculation and it's instant death. And truthfully, Tanaka would never do this on his own if it weren't for work. This isn't bravery or confidence, this is desperation. He needs to meet his quota. He doesn't have the luxury of taking it slow. So even though every instinct in his body is screaming not to do it, he forces himself anyway. He's doing something insanely dangerous against his own will, purely because the system demands it. As Tanaka drops into the darkness with zero emotion on his face, no fear, no reaction, the people watching the stream are losing it. The chat is panicking. Everyone's thinking the same thing. We're actually about to watch this man die live. The tension is insane. Then Tanaka's phone starts ringing again. This time it's even more aggressive, like it's begging him to pick up. But Tanaka just tells himself it's probably nothing important. He's got bigger problems right now, so once again he ignores it. Mid-fall, he finally notices that the drone is still following him. It's floating there like it's glued to him. He's still not used to being filmed, but rules are rules, and he doesn't have the energy to argue with regulations right now. Still, the idea of being recorded makes him uneasy. Even if it's just for company records, it feels awkward. He briefly thinks about how cringe it would be if this footage were actually being streamed somewhere. Which is funny, because that's literally what's happening. Now that the thought is stuck in his head, he randomly wonders if people would leave comments if he ever tried streaming for real. Will he get cancelled? As he glances at the camera, the audience absolutely pops off. They've never seen a streamer like this before. A guy who looks half dead, sounds depressed, and casually jumps into the deepest dungeon solo. The comments are exploding with hype, concern, and disbelief all at once. Meanwhile, Tanaka has no idea any of this is happening. After a few more seconds of falling, he can tell he's almost at the bottom. He shifts his body slightly, preparing to land. That's when he sees it. A monster is already down there, waiting for him like it knew he was coming. The chat goes silent for a split second before completely losing their minds. Viewers are shocked and terrified for Tanaka because this is the first time they've ever seen a monster this massive appear on a live stream. It's huge, absolutely monstrous. Tanaka, on the other hand, takes one look and immediately recognizes it, a red wyvern. Yeah, it's big and intimidating, but in his eyes, low level, nothing special. Based on the way he lands, Tanaka instantly understands that the wyvern thinks he's food. That's why it launches itself straight at him, the moment his feet touch the ground. Tanaka sighs internally. He doesn't want to deal with this. He's tired, he's sleepy, and he really doesn't feel like wasting time on a low-level monster, so he makes a decision on the spot. With his sword in hand, looking bored out of his mind and half asleep, Tanaka swings once. Just once. The blade slices through the wyvern's body like it's butter, clean and effortless. No flashy moves, no dramatic struggle. He finishes the cut while making sure his landing is perfect, touching down like nothing even happened. For a solid minute, the entire comment section is dead silent. Everyone watching is completely speechless, stunned by Tanaka's overwhelming aura and casual dominance, realizing they might not be watching a random exhausted salaryman after all. People in the comments straight up lost their minds the moment they realized the red wyvern had just been sliced clean in half. Like not injured, not staggered, not barely survived, fully split down the middle. And everyone watching knew one thing for sure. That is not something a normal human can do. Not even close. That kind of damage is way beyond human limits, even for gifted explorers. Because of what Tanaka casually pulled off, clips of his fight started spreading at light speed across social media. We're talking reposts, stitches, reaction vids, slowed down edits, analysis threads. The whole internet went feral. Meanwhile, Tanaka's phone starts ringing non-stop, basically trying to escape his pocket. And at this point, Tanaka is genuinely over it. His patience is wearing thinner by the second. He's just about to get actually pissed. Like workplace rage unlocked, when suddenly several massive monsters start appearing one after another. And just like that, things get way more interesting. For the viewers, this is peak content. But for Tanaka, this is just another annoying extension of his shift. Since he still has a ton of work to get done, Tanaka doesn't even bother stressing about what else might be waiting deeper inside. He's already at the lowest level of the dungeon after all, and everyone watching knows exactly how dangerous this place is, especially people living in Tokyo. It's common knowledge that the very bottom of dungeons is basically monster central, strong creatures everywhere, absolute nightmare zone. Still, Tanaka stands there with nothing but his sword and pure I guess we ball energy. No backup, no team, just him. He's hoping, not even confidently, just hoping that he'll somehow get through this alive. After taking down the red wyvern, he's now staring down an even worse lineup: trolls, minotaurs, basilisks, and death knights. Compared to the wyvern, these monsters are way more dangerous. And just to make things extra cursed, the tyrant dragon is also here, ready to ruin his day. And this dragon? Yeah, this one's different. Out of all the monsters Tanaka's ever fought, the tyrant dragon is in a league of its own. It's infamous, a straight-up menace. Even Tanaka, with all his experience, does not want to fight this thing. If he had literally any other option, he would avoid it without hesitation. But sadly, this is work, and he's alone, with no teammates to rely on, no backup to call in. So yeah, he has no choice. Complaining won't change anything. Running won't fix the quota. This fight is mandatory content. All he can do now is pray it goes well and give it everything he has. With the same tired, half-dead expression still plastered on his face, Tanaka finally gets back to work. Even though exhaustion is dragging him down hard, he forces himself to stay awake. His first opponents in this next wave are trolls. In this world, trolls are known as absolute tanks. Huge muscular bodies, terrifying faces, heavy weapons, the whole package. They're considered strong dungeon monsters that even high-ranking explorers struggle with. The first time Tanaka ever encountered a troll, he had a rough time too. No shame in that, these things are durable as hell. But after fighting them dozens of times, Tanaka figured something out. While trolls are bulky and strong, they're actually kind of simple. No special abilities, no magic, just brute force, and if you know where to hit, they go down fast, specifically the neck. From Tanaka's experience, once you cut a troll's neck properly, it's over instantly. No second phase, no comeback. Lights out. That's why, to Tanaka, trolls are actually on the weaker side compared to other monsters lurking in the depths. The problem is, most people don't know this, especially civilians who've never stepped inside a dungeon. So when viewers see Tanaka take down multiple trolls with a single sword strike each, they absolutely lose it. To them, what they're watching looks straight up inhuman. The comments start flooding in like crazy. People are saying trolls are A-rank monsters, that even seasoned explorers struggle against them. There's no way some emotionless, half-asleep guy should be deleting them that easily. Some viewers even start accusing Tanaka of editing the footage or faking the fight. Like, no way, this is real time. No one is that strong, but others start to believe. Slowly but surely, they point out that even A-rank explorers usually need teamwork, strategy, and effort to win. Meanwhile, Tanaka is out here absolutely farming monsters solo. Calm, clean, efficient, and because of that, more and more viewers pile into the stream, wanting to see what happens next. Some people even start contacting the Black Dog Guild directly, asking if Tanaka is really one of theirs. Because if he is, his skill level is beyond cracked. The company, realizing something insane is happening, tries calling Tanaka again and again to explain the situation. But Tanaka? He's getting more and more annoyed. His phone won't stop vibrating, and he's not used to this kind of attention at all, so he ignores it and keeps going. Outside the dungeon, everything is chaos. Inside the dungeon, Tanaka looks bored. He's so focused on finishing his job that he doesn't even think about checking his phone. And just when things couldn't get more intense, a new monster steps forward. This one looks like a massive iguana. It turns out to be a basilisk, a monster that is extremely rare that most explorers never encounter one in their entire career. While ogres and trolls are common in lower levels, basilisks usually live only in the deepest zones. And on top of that, they have a deadly ability, petrification breath. If you get hit by it, you turn to stone instantly. Naturally, the audience starts panicking. Some people even start questioning whether becoming an explorer is worth it at all. Fear spreads through the comments. By this point, the stream has hit 5 million viewers, an insane number. Tanaka, completely unaware of his growing fame, is fully locked in. As a veteran, he already knows exactly how dangerous this monster is. He knows about the petrification breath, and he knows that if it gets used, the fight is over. Normally, explorers would rely on teammates to heal or support them, but Tanaka doesn't have that luxury. He's solo, always has been. So he decides the fight needs to end immediately. Moving faster than the viewers can even process, Tanaka strikes upward and slices open the basilisk's abdomen from below. One clean move, and somehow it works. Turns out the basilisk has a weak spot there. Miss it even slightly, and you're dead. Tanaka knows this because he's fought them before, and because he tends to talk to himself, everyone watching hears him explain it out loud. The audience is stunned. This isn't rare knowledge, this is knowledge no one had. People are in complete awe. They've never seen a basilisk defeated that easily. And now they're wondering just how many of these things Tanaka has fought before. Overseas streamers start rebroadcasting his stream with titles like, "A Real Samurai Has Appeared in Japan." His stream blows past 10 million views. At this point, Tanaka is a global celebrity. And he still doesn't know. His phone keeps vibrating, annoying him even more. He assumes it's just higher-ups yelling at him, so he ignores it again. He doesn't have time anyway, because now his next opponent has arrived. The Tyrant Dragon, an S-rank monster, one that explorers actively avoid. It's dozens of times stronger than a troll, with terrifying durability and a breath attack hot enough to melt iron. Everyone knows how dangerous it is. The comments beg Tanaka to run, since this whole thing is literally a once-in-a-lifetime moment, not just for the viewers but even for explorers themselves. Tanaka's stream has officially blown past 50 million views. Like, actually insane. A milestone that no explorer has ever hit before, period. As the pressure around him keeps ramping up, and the situation gets more intense by the second. Tanaka locks in and focuses on gathering every bit of power he's got, trying to end this fight with the monster in one clean move. At the end of the day, he doesn't really have a choice. There's no backing out now, no escape route, especially since he's already stuck at the very bottom of the dungeon. Before actually sending it and putting his life on the line, Tanaka takes a moment to slow things down and lock in. He doesn't rush. He carefully pieces together a solid plan, step by step, using everything he knows about the monster standing in front of him. Based on all the data and experience he has with creatures like this, the Tyrant Dragon's breath attack is on a completely different level compared to anything he fought earlier. The firepower isn't just strong, it's absurd. One direct hit from that breath and it's instant deletion. No dramatic death, no leftovers, not even ash, just gone. That's exactly why Tanaka knows he has to move perfectly. No sloppy swings, no wasted motion. Everything has to be clean, sharp, and precise. While Tanaka is locking in down there, the comment section is absolutely losing it. People are spamming non-stop, panic typing, begging him to run while he still can. Some viewers straight up give up and start saying their goodbyes, already convinced this is where Tanaka meets his end. To them, facing a Tyrant Dragon solo is basically a death sentence. But then, Tanaka completely flips the script. Even though his face still looks bored, tired, and completely unbothered, the energy he's giving off tells a different story. He's not scared. If anything, he's locked in and ready. This isn't just another job to him. Taking down a Tyrant Dragon isn't something that happens every day, and that alone makes this moment special, even if he doesn't show it on his face. The whole situation is terrifying, no doubt about it. The air feels heavy, the pressure keeps rising, and the danger is very real. Still, Tanaka keeps his movements controlled, steady, and calm. He slows his breathing, keeps his stance firm, and prepares to strike with zero hesitation. But before he can even make the first move, the Tyrant Dragon goes on the offensive. It unleashes its breath attack instantly. A wave of scorching heat floods the area, flames roaring forward with enough power to melt iron like it's nothing. For a normal explorer, this would have been game over on the spot, just instant death. But this isn't a normal explorer, this is Tanaka. Even as the heat tears through the area and pain hits his body, he doesn't back down. He holds his ground, enduring just long enough to make sure his timing is perfect. With full focus and absolute precision, Tanaka grips his sword and moves in one clean motion with no wasted effort. The blade flashes once, slicing straight through the Tyrant Dragon's body. The cut is so fast and smooth that the monster doesn't even get a chance to react. In less than a second, the Tyrant Dragon collapses, split cleanly in half. Just like that, the monster everyone feared is dead. The entire world watching the stream goes completely silent before exploding all at once. A Tyrant Dragon, an S-rank monster that most explorers avoid at all costs, taken down in a single attack, and the one who did it is Tanaka, a random salaryman explorer nobody even knew about until today. The moment instantly goes global. Clips start spreading everywhere. People rewind the footage again and again just to make sure they really saw what happened. The comment section fills with shock, disbelief, and pure hype. Beating a Tyrant Dragon alone is already insane. Doing it in one hit is straight up unreal. And the fact that Tanaka appeared out of nowhere only makes the mystery deeper. Everyone wants to know who he is and where he came from. Meanwhile, Tanaka looks exhausted. The fight is over, and all he wants is for this whole thing to end already. He barely has time to breathe before new monsters start pouring into the area. It turns out the Tyrant Dragon he just defeated was the boss of this level. With the boss gone, the remaining monsters lose their will to fight. They hesitate, scatter, and clearly want nothing to do with him. Tanaka seems to feel the same way of wanting to just rest. On top of that, since this whole expedition is technically company work, any extra materials he collects would just go straight to the company anyway. He already hit his quota, so there's no reason to push himself further. With that in mind, Tanaka lowers his guard and calmly puts his sword away. He signals that the fight is over. The monsters don't waste a second. They turn and run, disappearing as fast as they can without even looking back. With the danger gone, Tanaka finally relaxes. He's relieved that he finished earlier than expected. He starts gathering the materials he needs to report for his quota, planning to head straight home afterward. Before leaving though, he checks his phone for the first time in a while. At first he assumes it's just a few company messages, nothing serious, but the moment the screen lights up, his expression changes. Notifications are flooding in non-stop. He taps one, then another, and finally freezes. For the first time, the usually emotionless Tanaka actually reacts. He knew his phone had been ringing earlier, but this number doesn't make any sense. Confused, he opens one notification and sees something he never expected: D2 notifications. When he taps into it, the realization hits him like a truck. His entire body stiffens. His soul nearly leaves his body. Millions of people have been watching him this whole time. Tanaka completely spirals. He's sure he set the stream to company only. But then it clicks, he missed the setting. The realization that random people across the world have been watching him the entire time nearly breaks him. Still, he clings to the hope that it wasn't that many people. It's his first stream. He's a nobody. There's no way it blew up that much. Then he sees the numbers, over 100 million views. At that moment, Tanaka fully loses it. The man who barely shows emotion now reacts like never before. He genuinely thought the company account only had around 2,000 subscribers. That number made sense to him. But 100 million? That's beyond famous streamer levels. That's world-breaking. The fact that most streamers struggle to even hit 1 million views makes the situation both unbelievable and terrifying to him. The comment section goes absolutely feral once viewers realize Tanaka finally noticed the stream. People start joking, flexing that they were there from the beginning, praising how calm and cool he was the entire time. Others can't stop talking about his deadpan expression and insane strength. Since no one has ever seen someone like Tanaka before, the internet goes wild trying to figure him out. The hashtag corporate slave swordmaster starts trending worldwide. Guilds from everywhere start begging him to join. Viewers want to know how he got so strong in the first place. Realizing there's no way to fix this now, Tanaka lets out a long sigh and drops to his knees. A report is definitely happening. A very long one. After finishing cleanup and submitting his materials, he goes straight home. But sleep doesn't come easily. He stays awake all night, replaying everything that happened. The next day, wrapped in a blanket on his couch, Tanaka checks the internet to see if things calmed down. They didn't? He's everywhere. News articles flood the front pages. On Yahoo, headline after headline is about him. Corporate slave sword master defeats S-rank tyrant dragon solo. Black Dog Guild accused of labor violations. Experts debate authenticity of viral dungeon stream. It's non-stop. He checks Twitter next and sees he's trending there too. Someone named Neeson uploaded the full stream, and the comments are chaotic. People are praising him, calling him chill, cool, and unstoppable. Even the re-upload is pulling millions of views. Tanaka finally gives up and hopes things die down soon. Unsure how this will affect his life, he wonders if this is what people call a buzz. Since he doesn't understand this world at all, he decides to call someone more internet savvy for advice. Even though Tanaka dives solo and takes on the lowest levels alone, he never thought it was a big deal. To him it was just work. But to understand how he became this strong, it's time to look back. Because Tanaka has been doing this since the dungeons first appeared, long before anyone knew what they'd become. His early dives were nothing like today, long before the calm, deadly sword master the world now knows. Back then, Tanaka used to be the type to stack up on safety gear like his life depended on it. Because honestly, it did. Helmets, padding, protection, the whole setup. He was genuinely terrified of monsters, and it showed in how cautious he was. After going through all those experiences over the years, he did believe he'd gotten stronger. Sure, but not to the point where he'd ever expect to cause this kind of worldwide chaos. This level of attention was way beyond anything he imagined, so naturally, he started trying to figure out why so many people suddenly latched onto him. As Tanaka looked at the situation from the outside, one thought kept popping up. Maybe it wasn't just about strength. Maybe it was about how he looked. Because honestly, Tanaka didn't look cool at all by explorer standards. He looked like the most average exhausted salaryman imaginable. Suit and tie, same boring outfit everyone wears on the morning train, with eye bags so dark they looked permanent. He didn't have flashy armor or a heroic vibe. He didn't look like an explorer. He looked like someone who hadn't slept properly in years and was just trying to survive his 9-to-5. Once he connected all those dots, Tanaka finally landed on a conclusion. It had to be the contrast. People weren't used to seeing someone who looked like a worn-out corporate worker casually cutting down legendary monsters. That gap between appearance and ability was probably what had everyone losing their minds. That realization made everything make a little more sense because the internet loved that kind of whiplash. While Tanaka was sitting there quietly processing all of this, his phone suddenly started ringing again. The sound alone made him flinch. He really didn't want any more attention right now, so his first instinct was to disconnect from DTube entirely. On top of that, he was actively trying to dodge anything related to his company. The last thing he needed was more chaos. But when he checked the caller ID, it wasn't his company, it was Adachi. Adachi was one of Tanaka's few remaining friends, someone he used to hang out with a lot back in the day. Life and work had gotten in the way over the years, and they barely met anymore. Tanaka had been so busy grinding that he'd practically lost touch without even realizing it. Still, he knew exactly why Adachi was calling. It had to be about what happened yesterday, and honestly Tanaka didn't feel ready to talk about it. Even so, Adachi was basically the only person he could talk to about this, so he answered. The moment the call connected, Adachi greeted him with way too much energy. That alone confirmed Tanaka's suspicion. This was definitely about yesterday. Without waiting another second, Tanaka hung up, but Adachi didn't let it slide. The phone immediately started ringing again, and again, and again. Annoyed, Tanaka finally picked up and asked Adachi what he wanted. The way they talked made it obvious they were close friends. There was no awkwardness, just familiarity. And thinking about it now, Tanaka realized he actually needed Adachi's advice. Hanging up again would only hurt him in the long run. Adachi had always been good with people. He had connections everywhere and understood how social media worked. Tanaka was confident Adachi could help him make sense of this mess. As the conversation went on, Adachi told him how impressed he was by how much Tanaka had grown. Tanaka immediately shut that down. Compliments were the last thing he wanted. What he wanted was a way out. He straight up asked Adachi what he should do because he didn't want this much attention on him. Tanaka even floated the idea of deleting the videos. Adachi shut that down immediately. That ship had already sailed. Tanaka's fights had been clipped by hundreds of people, reposted everywhere, and spread overseas. At this point, Tanaka wasn't just trending in Japan, he was trending globally. Titles like A Real Samurai Appears in Japan were popping up on international platforms. To make things worse, Adachi checked and confirmed the scale of it all. The videos had already been translated into 5 different languages. Tanaka was basically begging at this point, hoping there was some way to calm everything down. But Adachi didn't sugarcoat it. There was no stopping it now. Then Adachi hit him with a reality check. Tanaka had become such a hardcore corporate slave that he was ready to throw away something people dream of their entire lives. Adachi reminded him that this kind of opportunity doesn't come twice. Instead of wasting it, Adachi suggested something wild. He told Tanaka to quit his job and become a full-time streamer, an influencer, someone who could finally control his own time and money. That idea had never even crossed Tanaka's mind. Quitting his corporate job felt unreal. Adachi noticed Tanaka's eye bags getting worse just from the stress of the conversation. It was obvious Tanaka was still being overworked by Suda for barely any pay. Tanaka didn't argue, because deep down he knew Adachi was right. Suda, for context, was the president of the company Tanaka worked for. The three of them, Tanaka, Adachi, and Suda, had been childhood friends, but things changed when Suda lent Tanaka money during a rough time with his parents' health. Tanaka had already paid that debt back, but years of working under Suda made him feel trapped. Quitting felt wrong, even if the debt was gone. Adachi reminded him that it was time to start living for himself. That idea felt foreign to Tanaka. He'd been working non-stop for so long that he never thought about whether he was allowed to live his own life. Adachi also guessed that Suna probably threatened him with something like, "You'll never find another job." Tanaka confirmed it immediately, which only made Suna look worse. Adachi told him not to take those words seriously. After yesterday, plenty of guilds would want Tanaka. He could even go freelance. Tanaka explained why freelancing wasn't realistic. Dungeon items couldn't be exchanged directly for yen. They had to be converted into G, and only companies with proper qualifications could exchange that currency. It was a strict system to protect the economy. Adachi listened, then clarified his point. He wasn't saying Tanaka should freelance, he was saying Tanaka should become a dungeon streamer. Dungeon streaming didn't require those qualifications, and plenty of people were making money from it. Tanaka wasn't sure if he could handle such a huge change. Adachi reassured him, saying he didn't need to decide right away, and if Tanaka ever chose that path, Adachi would support him fully. Adachi worked for a company that supported explorers, so he knew what he was talking about. He wasn't just reliable professionally, but personally too. Tanaka thanked him sincerely. Still, the idea of leaving the company felt heavy. Being unemployed at his age scared him. Sensing that, Adachi admitted something personal. He'd admired Tanaka for a long time. Not just Tanaka, but explorers in general. People who risked their lives to protect others. Watching Tanaka fight made Adachi believe that as long as people like him existed, others wouldn't have to risk themselves. That belief was what pushed Adachi into supporting explorers in the first place. It took Tanaka a moment, but he finally understood what Adachi meant. Adachi gave Tanaka one last push before he left his apartment, hyping him up to finally quit the corporate grind. He even joked that if Tanaka was nervous about being jobless, he could hire him as a waiter at his company, just to make it easier for Tanaka to take the leap. Adachi reminded him of what he had done solo to Tyrant Dragon and said that strength like that would carry him through anything, including dealing with Suda. Tanaka left his apartment early, the city streets of Shibuya buzzing around him. Commuters rushed to the trains, delivery drones zipped past, and street vendors shouted over the noise, selling everything from takoyaki to tech gadgets. Tanaka weaved through the crowd like a ghost, calm and collected, his black suit rumpled, dark circles under his eyes making him look exhausted but oddly imposing. Every step brought him closer to the confrontation he had been dreading and anticipating. When he arrived at the Black Dog Guild office, Suda was already waiting, pacing with a kind of manic intensity. His footsteps were loud, stomping across the floor like thunder, making papers and office supplies shake. Suda's face was red with rage, veins popping as he warned Tanaka to brace himself for the consequences of his reckless actions the day before. He immediately started shouting at Tanaka, claiming that the previous day's streaming incident had completely destroyed the company's reputation. Every word was sharp, rapid-fire, and designed to intimidate. Suda warned that other employees were on their way to witness the punishment Tanaka would face, suggesting that something gruesome and humiliating would happen. He gestured wildly, kicked a chair across the office, knocked over a trash can, and even slammed a filing cabinet door. The office itself seemed to tremble under the weight of Suda's fury, and the employees entering the room froze, unsure whether to step forward or stay back. Tanaka remained calm, his posture relaxed, as he waited for Suda to finish. The boss continued his tirade, framing his verbal abuse as being for the company's good, insisting that Tanaka's recklessness had endangered the guild's reputation and put employees in jeopardy. He tried to manipulate the narrative, claiming that he had given Tanaka a chance to work at the guild when no one else would, and that Tanaka owed loyalty for that favor. He also attempted to gaslight him, emphasizing how generous the company had been by providing the minimum wage and 1 day off per month, spinning the numbers as if they were acts of kindness. Tanaka calmly admitted the technical mistake. The stream settings had been wrong, and some company details had unintentionally leaked online. Every word was factual, precise, and deliberate, without any emotional inflection. The employees in the room, initially tense and fearful, now began exchanging glances, stunned at Tanaka's composure. Suda's ego was immediately fed, and he leaned in closer, trying to assert control. He emphasized that Tanaka had endangered the guild and implied that he would make him pay for it, expecting submission and groveling. But Tanaka countered methodically, pointing out systemic issues in the guild, embezzlement of salaries, violations of the Explorer Labor Standard Act, and mistreatment of employees. He highlighted that these were structural problems, not personal grievances, effectively turning the accusation back on Suda. Then came the real shock. Tanaka revealed that the entire confrontation had been streamed on Ditto using a camouflage mode. Suda's face went pale. For years he had relied on secrecy and intimidation to maintain control, but now every abusive word, every threat, every violent gesture was being broadcast live to the world. The chat exploded instantly. Viewers were posting in real time. Black company exposed. Finally, justice, this guy is insane. Corporate slave swordmaster, 1010. Subscribers for the Black Dog Guild channel skyrocketed as people tuned in from Japan and overseas. Screenshots were circulating across social media platforms, clips being shared on TikTok, YouTube, and international streaming websites. The employees were stunned, witnessing Suna's meltdown firsthand. Co-workers who had been summoned to see the confrontation were frozen in place, mouths agape, watching the dominoes of the company's authority crumble. Suna tried to regain control, raising his voice and gesturing aggressively, attempting to intimidate Tanaka and anyone else watching. He drew his blade, the metal glinting ominously in the harsh office lights. Employees instinctively stepped back, unsure if the confrontation would escalate to violence. Suna shouted that Tanaka owed him respect, loyalty, and submission for the opportunities he had provided. Tanaka stood firm, his voice steady and measured. Tanaka spotted it right away. The knife Sada was holding wasn't some random office junk. This was straight-up dungeon-level lethal gear, the kind that could turn someone into a permanent zero if misused. Anyone caught taking one of these out of the dungeon without clearance would be violating the Dungeon Management Act, which was basically a major legal red flag. And yep, it was clear Sada had just done that. He had literally smuggled a dungeon-grade weapon into the office. Suda moved toward Tanaka, but immediately Tanaka noticed something off. This former explorer, someone who used to probably dominate dungeons back in the day, was moving slow, like way slower than a mid-level monster you'd find in the lowest dungeon floors. His strength and agility clearly didn't match his reputation anymore. Corruption, greed, and years of abusing his employees seemed to have worn him down. Suda swung the knife, but Tanaka sidestepped clean, blocking the attack and using a single precise move to injure Suda's hand. The sound of Suda's scream echoed in the office, causing everyone to flinch. Tanaka followed it up with a light punch to the stomach, not lethal but enough to launch Suda several meters across the floor. Papers flew, chairs toppled, and the air practically buzzed with shock from the employees watching. Everyone froze, staring in disbelief. It looked intense, but Tanaka had deliberately held back. Suda wasn't going to die here. Tanaka only wanted to teach him a lesson in power and consequence. Even after being blown back, Suda got up. The man's pride, forged in the dungeon and hardened over decades, refused to let him stay down. His spirit wasn't broken. Suda barked orders at his men, threatening them with pay cuts if they didn't stop Tanaka. The tension in the room skyrocketed. Tanaka stayed calm, observing as one of the young employees, someone who had joined the company just last year, approached slowly, shaking under Suda's wrath. The young man apologized, clearly terrified, explaining he only intended to hold Tanaka back without causing real harm. Tanaka gave him the nod of approval, letting him know it was okay to follow through under orders. The young man tried to take Tanaka's legs, probably thinking he could get an advantage, but his movements were hesitant, slow, and transparent. Tanaka barely needed to react, and in a single smooth move he knocked the man down without breaking a sweat. The office erupted in murmurs and gasps. Suda's face turned crimson, veins bulging with rage. His attempts to dominate the situation were failing spectacularly. Rather than fighting Suda again, Tanaka tried reasoning, pointing out that the live stream had captured everything. If Suda continued, his reputation and the company's would crumble further. But Suda was beyond reasoning. His ego and anger completely overrode any logic. He ranted about how the company owed him everything, blaming Tanaka for destroying what he had built. The intensity in the room climbed to a peak. Suda finally ordered Guda, a strong A-rank explorer and Tanaka's junior, to go after him. Unlike the first hesitant employee, Guda had real experience in dungeon combat training. Tanaka recognized the danger immediately. He knew Guda's skill level and understood that defeating him wouldn't be like the previous confrontation. But as Guda stepped closer, he whispered, "Congrats on finally quitting." Tanaka was taken aback. Guda had always thought Tanaka didn't belong in a toxic company like this one, and now openly showed his support. Tanaka gave a small but meaningful smile, silently expressing gratitude. Satsuna's rage intensified as he watched his loyal employee openly defy him. He shouted insults at Guda, calling him scum and a traitor. But Guda didn't flinch. His glare alone silenced Suda. He reminded the office, and Suda specifically, that Tanaka had taught him everything about being an explorer. No matter Suda's threats, Guda refused to obey orders that would harm his mentor. Then Guda stepped forward, offering to block Suda so Tanaka could safely leave. Tanaka nodded, relieved. He finally had a reliable ally amid the chaos. As Tanaka reached for the door to leave, it slammed open dramatically. A tall, long-haired woman entered, commanding everyone to freeze. She introduced herself as an auditor from the association's management bureau. The room went silent. Her authority and presence demanded immediate attention. Suda laughed at first, thinking she was on his side and that he could shift the blame to Tanaka. He warned Tanaka, brimming with false confidence, that the officials were coming after him. But the auditors were from the Ministry of Monster Control, a high-level government department monitoring dungeon activity and ensuring compliance. Tanaka watched as Suda's delusions started unraveling. The officials quickly restrained him, handcuffing him, while Suda screamed that they had it wrong and that Tanaka was the real culprit. The lead auditor shut him down immediately. She announced that Suda Akihito was under arrest for violating the Explorer Labor Standards Act and the Awaken Special Act. Every illegal act, every abuse of power, and every unsafe practice had been captured on Tanaka's live stream. Suda had no way to argue, no loopholes, and no public sympathy left. He tried one last defense, claiming that Tanaka should be arrested instead for using violence against a civilian. The officials listened carefully, noting that the Awaken Special Act restricted awakened individuals, those with dungeon powers, from using them outside of sanctioned dungeon combat against ordinary people. But Tanaka's actions were legal. Suda's abuse was illegal. The laws were clear, and the evidence from the live stream left no room for negotiation. Tanaka stayed calm, observing the downfall of a man who had abused his employees for years. Suda's corruption, arrogance, and tyrannical behavior had finally caught up with him. The live footage had exposed everything to millions around the world, and the office watched in stunned silence as the once feared president was handcuffed and led away. With the raid, the guild's dark secrets were exposed, and Tanaka had fully orchestrated the downfall without spilling a drop of unnecessary blood. His calm composure, experience, and clever planning allowed the entire situation to unfold flawlessly. Suda's ego, once towering and untouchable, crumbled under the weight of law, ethics, and public scrutiny. The office erupted into whispers, reactions, and relieved sighs. Employees realized that justice had finally been served, and the live-streamed event went viral instantly, dominating discussions across every platform imaginable. The Black Dog Guild, once feared and tyrannical, now faced global scrutiny. Tanaka's actions, precise and measured, ensured that the corrupt leader could no longer harm anyone while also cementing his reputation as a top-tier explorer and tactician in the eyes of the world. So, the officer stepped in and laid down the law, but in the most official way possible. She basically said, "Tanaka, what you did, totally self-defense." And not just any self-defense, because here's the twist: if Suna hadn't been awakened, there could have been a case that Tanaka went a little overboard. But yep, Suna is awakened too, which means technically he has those enhanced powers and reflexes from his dungeon awakening. And since Suna made the first move and even pulled a knife, yeah, one of those crazy lethal dungeon knives, he was the one at fault. The officer pointed out that since Suna had previously been an explorer, he still counts as awakened even if he's not actively exploring anymore. And because the law, aka the Awakened Special Act, only applies to civilians in this context, Tanaka wasn't going to get any legal backlash. That said, the officer still needed him to swing by the public office, just to clarify things officially and make sure the records were solid. As Tanaka looked at her, he got that weird gut feeling like he'd seen this woman before. And then bam, memory clicks. Amatsuki Kanada, the chief of Subjugation Unit 1, the top dog, the I literally run elite dungeon arrests like it's my morning coffee type of officer. Tanaka couldn't believe it. He and Suda, they just got a dose of real fear, but Amatsuki showing up in person, that was like summoning a dungeon-level boss into the office. Suna's smug energy dropped immediately. The man's confidence literally evaporated. Amatsuki got straight to business, no sugarcoating. She explained that when an awakened is committing a crime, someone from her unit has to be present. Regular cops wouldn't stand a chance chasing a fully awakened individual. They'd be lucky not to get fried or thrown through a wall. And Suda, he was technically the offender. His time in the dungeon gave him powers that could obliterate normal law enforcement if unchecked. So yeah, the top-level subjugation unit had to step in. For Tanaka, it was kind of surreal. Why is someone this elite even bothering with Suda, he thought, watching her calm, precise movements. Subjugation Unit 1 wasn't just a squad, they were like the Navy SEALs for awakened enforcement. They handled rogue awakened criminals, sudden monster outbreaks in urban areas, and any situation that your average cop or guild couldn't even touch. And Amatsuki wasn't just a member, she was the chief, top-ranked, youngest ever to hold that position. Smarts, combat skill, beauty, and authority, all wrapped into one lethal package. Society, and honestly most men, couldn't even comprehend her level. And here she was, standing in front of Tanaka, reading the room like she already knew exactly what went down. And here's the personal twist. Tanaka and Amatsuki weren't strangers. Back in the dungeon diving days, they had run elite missions together. They were close, tight-knit, shared strategies, shared danger, shared victories. But life had pulled them in different directions. Tanaka got buried in corporate hell, and Amatsuki rose to elite official status. The gap between them now? Massive. Tanaka even briefly hoped that maybe, just maybe, she personally came because of him, like some old-school respect. Nope, she stated plainly there was no deeper reason. She was the one available, and that was it. But Tanaka could see that Amatsuki was busy, and he wondered if her words were 100% truth. When their eyes met for a moment, she quickly looked away, giving him that "I don't want to deal with you personally" vibe. Awkward tension. She snapped back to business, focusing fully on Suda. Suda was cuffed, flailing, screaming about how he's the president and how he would get revenge. Dragged out of the office, the guy's energy never dropped. Full of rage, full of empty threats, still thinking he could claw his way back into power. But Tanaka, the resignation drama, the chaos, the corporate nightmare, it was finally over. Amatsuki wasn't done though. She wanted Tanaka's perspective, the full story. She requested he voluntarily come to headquarters. Tanaka, exhausted from weeks of no sleep and non-stop stress, tried to negotiate a small pause. He wanted to rest first. At first she pushed back, but he held his ground and she let it slide. In true dramatic superhero fashion, Tanaka didn't even exit via the front door. He bounced out the window like a literal action hero, leaving the office behind. Before jumping, he dropped a business card, ensuring she could reach him anytime. Amatsuki tried to call out one last time, confessing she had come all this way to see him personally, but Tanaka was already airborne, didn't catch a word. She watched him go. Sad that the connection they once had, the dungeon missions, the camaraderie, was likely over. The next day, Tanaka met up with Adachi. His friend spotted him, shouting his name like a hype announcer, but Tanaka kept things low-key because there were still people around who could recognize him from the stream. Tanaka tried to head home, but Adachi wasn't letting him slip away. It had been ages since they last hung out. Adachi insisted they grab food and catch up. He even framed it as a retirement gift from him, acknowledging Tanaka's exit from corporate hell. Then came the move. Tanaka went all in, ordering literally everything on the menu. Adachi, who promised to foot the bill, didn't even flinch. He wanted to see his friend finally living a little, finally not stressed to the point of near death. Watching Tanaka eat, seeing the dark circles under his eyes fade, feeling his energy return, it was a relief. The corporate zombie was dead. The real Tanaka was coming back. Adachi had more surprises. He handed over a complete streaming guide he'd written himself, knowing Tanaka had zero experience with content creation. After years buried in work, Tanaka didn't know the first thing about streaming, algorithms, or audience engagement. Adachi promised to turn him into a world-class dungeon streamer. Almost made Tanaka cry. And he didn't stop there. He hooked Tanaka up with a drone for overhead footage, set up the streaming account, and even provided all the equipment Tanaka would need to start full-on streaming. While munching through the feast, Adachi casually mentioned that every major guild in Japan had tried to recruit Tanaka after his viral dungeon stream. Tanaka paused, realizing the insane scale of what had just happened. He had to handle the Association Management Bureau report first, but he made sure to thank Adachi for everything he'd set up. He wouldn't have been able to start this new path without him. Adachi asked if Amatsuki would be present at the bureau as well. Tanaka confirmed yes, knowing their shared connections. Adachi went on, reminiscing about seeing her on a stream before, how she had matured into a brilliant, beautiful, and deadly professional. Fans even called her the icy Bayonetta. Tanaka couldn't argue with that. He felt a pang of guilt and disappointment about how differently their lives had turned out. But Adachi reassured him, given their history, Amatsuki wasn't the type to abandon him, no matter the circumstances. Before Adachi could even finish his hype speech, Tanaka suddenly snapped into serious mode, flexing that inner warrior energy like he'd been charged up on an espresso shot. 1 second he was on the verge of tears. Next he's standing tall, puffing his chest out like he's ready to headline a boss fight. He reminded himself, even if he's been a total failure up until now, he's still gonna give it his all, at least enough so that Amatsuki could see him differently. Adachi felt a little awkward hearing that, like this was a lot for a friend to say, but he kept backing Tanaka anyway. And yeah, Adachi low-key felt sorry for Amatsuki. He could already tell she's about to have her patience tested with Tanaka bouncing back into action. Tanaka nearly argued with him for being condescending, but Adachi wasn't biting. Tanaka gave a final nod to Adachi and told him he'd go through all the notes and start streaming tomorrow. Adachi, being the ride-or-die bestie, promised he'd be watching the whole time and reminded him to crush it. After a spontaneous post-celebration meal, Tanaka finally set off to kickstart his plan. The next day, Tanaka exited the subway into brutal summer heat. Sweat was running everywhere, dripping down his back like he'd just fought a dungeon-level boss. But he couldn't care less. For the first time in forever, he could control his own schedule. Empty train cars? Check. Choosing when to get up? Check. No more corporate hell breathing down his neck. His first official day as a solo streamer had begun, and he was hyped. He made his way to the infamous Nishi Shinjuku Cliff Dungeon, notorious for its insane verticality and the epic, deadly vibe it gives off. After descending the long, twisting stairwell, he finally hit the entrance. He'd been there before, but even after all those trips, the dungeon still looked insane. Cracks and fissures running through the cliffside, glowing veins of magic essence lighting the walls like a neon nightmare. The middle levels were fully explored, which Tanaka decided would be the perfect zone to stream today. Going too deep too fast could make people bored, and he had no intention of burning out viewers in the first episode. Adachi's notes had drilled into him the power of slow hype and gradual builds, and Tanaka was ready to execute that perfectly. He prepped every gadget, drones synced with his phone, cameras positioned, streaming software running, DTube account linked, social media post ready to announce the stream. He expected maybe a handful of viewers, like 100 tops, but within seconds of going live, the view count shot past 1,000 and kept climbing. Comments flooded in non-stop. Tanaka froze for a moment, overwhelmed. The thought of all those eyes watching him live, people who had indirectly helped him leave his miserable corporate life, made him tense. But that tension quickly turned into focus. This was his new grind now, and he was gonna honor it. He greeted everyone with the calm, polite demeanor he'd perfected in the office, business suit still on, tie neat, and introduced himself. Tanaka Makoto, former Black Dog Guild explorer, now streaming live for the first time. He thanked everyone for tuning in, hyping the audience up even more. Viewers immediately began nicknaming him the Corpo Slave Swordmaster, a mix of corporate life aesthetic with badass dungeon cred. The polite professional vibe combined with epic dungeon exploration gave him a unique flavor compared to other DTubers who tended to be loud, chaotic, or memey. Within minutes, Tanaka's numbers were skyrocketing. He remembered Adachi's tip about projecting comments so he could read and respond without constantly looking down at his phone. After a few awkward taps through the app, he managed to set it up, and instantly comments scrolled across his screen. Nice setup, Corpo Master. OMG first solo stream and already hype. Bro's actually calm while descending a cliff dungeon. Respect. Tanaka smiled faintly, managing the interface while greeting the viewers, keeping a smooth rhythm. Once everything was ready, he explained the plan. Explore the middle levels today, save the deeper floors for later. He gave a quick heads up about the stream length and told viewers to share the stream for extra hype and engagement. Needed that clout for the start of his new life. As he made the first move into the dungeon, the cliffside came into full view. Sheer drops, jagged rock formations, and winding stone paths that looked like nature itself was daring him to survive. The Bureau had installed an elevator for casual explorers, but even that had a massive line. Tanaka noticed the crowd, a mix of casual adventurers and veteran explorers, all buzzing with chatter. He tried to ask someone what was going on, sweating under his collar. Then the first guy in line recognized him instantly. OMG, are you the Corpo Slave Swordmaster? Soon everyone in the queue was staring at him, some fangirling, some straight up geeking out. Tanaka realized his first stream had already made him way more famous among actual explorers than he expected. He took the opportunity to gather info. The elevator was broken halfway through the morning, leaving people stranded and causing the backup. Some groups had already entered, but now the Bureau was scrambling to rescue them before it got worse. Tanaka handled the chaos live on stream, narrating the situation, keeping viewers engaged. Comments were flying, bros reporting live, Pog. Is he gonna help them or just climb? Corpo Master to the rescue? Tanaka navigated through the crowd, interacting with explorers while explaining the situation. Some were excited to meet the viral streamer in person, shaking hands, asking questions, and joking about his suit still being crisp despite dungeon chaos. This brought a hilarious energy to the stream. He even managed to give shoutouts and mini interviews, showing his viewers a behind-the-scenes look at how real dungeon explorers reacted to unexpected events. By the time he reached the elevator, the hype was insane. DTube notifications were blowing up, and his view count was climbing faster than ever. Tanaka took a deep breath, adjusted his tie, and readied himself for the descent. The dungeon wasn't just a backdrop, it was the stage for his debut as a professional dungeon streamer. Every movement, every carefully narrated step, and every interaction with fellow explorers added to the energy, making the audience feel like they were right there with him. Even small things mattered. When he pushed a lever to check the elevator controls, a huge cheer erupted in the chat. When he gave instructions to the crew trying to rescue the stranded explorers, viewers loved seeing his calm, collected approach. The mix of professionalism, knowledge, and genuine interaction created a dynamic that viewers had rarely seen, setting Tanaka apart in the streaming world. By now, he had transformed the first day of streaming into a live event. Explorers interacting, elevator chaos, dungeon exploration, fan engagement, and his emerging reputation as a calm, strategic, and skilled explorer streaming live. Every decision, from pacing the middle levels to managing audience interaction, showed a level of thoughtfulness that kept viewers hooked for hours. His first ever solo stream was rapidly becoming iconic, and even the real-world explorers began to recognize that this wasn't just another casual live stream. It was something bigger, a new kind of interactive dungeon exploration experience. Tanaka finally pieced together what was going on with the elevator. The staff had been busting their asses since the crack of dawn, trying to fix the machinery, coordinate the groups stuck in the shaft, and keep the dungeon organized, but it was clear nothing was going to happen for a while. The technicians climbed scaffolds and inspected cables with precision, communicating over radios and checking every pulley, every gear, and every malfunctioning switch. They tried rerouting power, calibrating counterweights, and even manually pulling ropes where possible, but the massive elevator remained frozen mid-air. The lobby was full of explorers and staff running around, some carrying clipboards, others climbing ladders to inspect the control mechanisms, while a few stood on ledges checking the alignment of the elevator shaft. The chaos alone made it clear, waiting around was not going to cut it. Tanaka knew he couldn't just sit there. If he did, this stream and his first proper exploration would be ruined. He stepped forward to the reception desk. The two attendants, mid-call with the administration bureau, immediately froze as they recognized him. Their eyes widened and their hands hovered over their tablets, caught between finishing the call and acknowledging the infamous explorer in front of them. One of the girls quickly said that the elevator was completely broken and that no one could enter until it was fixed. Tanaka didn't flinch. Without hesitation, he insisted on being checked in. The staff exchanged nervous glances but complied, scanning his license, logging him into the dungeon system, and making sure all the rules were technically satisfied. Even as a freelancer with no guild to back him up, he got himself officially registered. With all the bureaucratic stuff done, Tanaka turned to the cliff. The Nishi Shinjuku dungeon yawned beneath him, a massive vertical sinkhole stretching hundreds of meters down into darkness. Dust and small stones slid over the edges, and gusts of wind whistled through the chasm. He adjusted his grip on his sword, braced himself, and jumped. The fall was instantaneous and violent. Air rushed past his face, tugging at his clothes and catching at his hair. Tanaka adjusted his posture mid-descent, maneuvering to avoid jagged rocks jutting out from the walls. He drew his sword and dragged it along the cliffside walls, using friction to slow himself. Sparks flew where the blade scraped against stone. The resistance was rough, jolting him violently with every rock that grazed his suit and gloves. Loose stones and uneven surfaces threatened to throw him off balance, but Tanaka maintained control. He twisted and shifted, letting his momentum carry him while keeping enough precision to avoid major injury. As he neared the bottom, he extended his legs and pushed against the cliff walls with his sword to further reduce speed. The technique was messy and dangerous, but he adapted quickly, balancing friction and momentum to land cleanly. When his feet hit the bottom, it wasn't a clumsy thud, it was a precise, controlled landing. Dust and debris swirled around him, his sword still in hand, and his stance radiated readiness, confidence, and skill. Every movement was a demonstration of experience and preparation, a combination of natural athleticism and years of explorer training. From there, Tanaka moved toward the dungeon proper. The entrance was a dark archway carved from the cliff face itself, with jagged stone protruding in uneven formations. Water dripped from cracks and faint luminescent moss glowed on the walls. The floor was uneven, scattered with rubble, and the air smelled faintly metallic, mixed with damp stone and dust. The corridor narrowed as he stepped forward, forcing careful navigation around jagged edges, dips, and protrusions. Each movement was calculated, the terrain dictating his pace. The first real threats appeared quickly. 5 goblins emerged from shadowy corners, their small frames covered in patched leathers and wielding crude knives. Their movements were clumsy, uncoordinated, but still dangerous in close quarters. Tanaka reacted instantly. With a swift, fluid motion, he dispatched them all in one precise sequence of strikes. Each blade swung cleanly, cutting through their defenses with efficiency. Within seconds, the goblins collapsed, leaving their weapons clattering on the stone floor. The dungeon didn't let up. Tanaka continued forward, navigating increasingly complex corridors and chambers. By the end of the middle floor, he had cleared multiple groups of goblins, avoided environmental hazards, and traversed dozens of meters of treacherous terrain. Stalactites, loose rocks, and narrow ledges had been overcome. Small chambers and hidden passages had been explored and cleared. His sword had struck repeatedly, neutralizing threats efficiently and cleanly. Finally, Tanaka paused at a relatively safe landing. Moss-covered walls, faint luminescent fungus, and the smell of damp stone surrounded him. Dust settled over previously disturbed rocks, and the area was quiet for the first time since his descent. Tanaka assessed the middle floor, ensuring that minor threats were cleared and that the path to the next stage of the dungeon was accessible. The middle floor complete, he prepared to push deeper, ready for the increasing dangers, environmental hazards, and larger creatures waiting in the shadows below. Tanaka took a deep breath and scanned the corridor ahead. The dungeon walls glowed faintly with phosphorescent moss and damp streaks of stone, while shadows danced across jagged edges. His footsteps echoed as he moved forward, each sound amplified by the cavern's hollow acoustics. The floor, littered with uneven rubble and shards of rock, demanded careful footing, and the faint smell of damp stone mixed with traces of mana essence filled the air. From the corner of his eye, 2 creatures suddenly lunged from the darkness behind him. He pivoted, narrowly dodging the sharp claws as they swiped at him. The monsters were dungeon rats, small, quick, and infamous for both their speed and the putrid stench that coated their blood. Anyone caught in their attack would be covered in the horrid smell, lingering for hours. Even seasoned explorers found these little pests aggravating. But Tanaka moved with precision. He raised his sword, focusing on the mechanics of the strike. In one swift, controlled motion, he sliced through both dungeon rats. The force of the swing sent them tumbling meters across the chamber, and the impact caused a small shockwave that echoed off the stone walls. This technique, something he called the flying blade, relied on speed, precision, and the shockwave created when a strike exceeds the speed of sound. The rat carcasses hit the ground with a soft explosion, leaving the area clear and the air still. The corridor opened into a wider chamber, the stone floor broken and cracked in places. Dust swirled around Tanaka as he carefully moved over jagged rock formations and fallen debris. The ceiling was high, peppered with stalactites and jagged stone hanging over the edges. Tiny pools of water collected in the crevices, reflecting the faint light from glowing fungi and moss. Shadows clung to every corner, and the sound of distant dripping water created an eerie rhythm across the chamber. Tanaka advanced cautiously, scanning every corner for movement. The dungeon was alive with subtle hints of danger, scuttling noises, faint scratching sounds, and the occasional shuffle of unseen creatures. Despite the mid-range difficulty of this floor, the monster's behavior was unpredictable. Small rodents skittered along the edges, and occasional goblins peeked from alcoves with crude knives in hand. Each encounter required split-second reflexes and careful strikes. Moving deeper into the dungeon, the walls became darker and more compact. The density of mana essence increased gradually, a subtle hum of energy brushing against his skin. This layer of the dungeon, the middle floor, was more treacherous than it seemed. The air itself felt heavier with magical energy, and careless movement could trigger instability or exhaustion. He discovered patches of glowing fungi called luminous caps, which absorbed mana essence from the surroundings. According to his notes and past experience, these mushrooms were loaded with mana essence, the same energy that powers awakened abilities. Eating one basically let a person absorb mana naturally, giving them a small boost in resistance or power if done right. Tanaka decided to go full demonstration mode for his viewers. He held it up for the camera, making sure the glow was visible, and then popped the mushroom into his mouth, chewing carefully while keeping his composure. The effect was immediate. His mouth started to glow a faint, eerie light, which looked insane on camera. For some viewers it was mesmerizing, for others totally gross. Watching a grown man literally eat raw dungeon mushrooms in front of a live camera made a few people cringe hard. Tanaka noticed the mixed reactions and realized he might have made a few people uncomfortable. To avoid losing his audience, he quickly broke it down. Anyone attempting this needed to eat the mushrooms in small doses, slowly absorbing the mana essence. Otherwise they could easily get mana poisoning, which could be fatal if done wrong. Then he went further, giving a little context about his own past. Back when he was stuck in that soul-crushing corporate life, he didn't even have time to eat proper meals. His work quotas were brutal, and he survived by eating whatever he could scavenge in dungeons, raw, unprocessed, straight from the floor. It wasn't glamorous. He remembered the times he ended up doubled over in pain, sometimes nearly passing out, and a few near-death moments thrown in for good measure. Over time, though, his body adapted. After 3 years of this grind, he built up an insane tolerance, not only to dungeon food, but also to the mana essence that would normally wreck a regular human explorer. It was a testament to human adaptability. Tanaka had pushed himself past ordinary limits just to survive and keep going. Seeing all of this, the viewer's reaction shifted. The initial disgust of watching him eat the glowing mushroom faded into a deep respect and sympathy. They realized how rough his life had been, how harsh the conditions were, and why he was so strong, capable, and independent now. His survival story alone was enough to explain why he could handle dangers that would wreck most people. The audience's appreciation went beyond words. They understood that without this crazy level of perseverance, Tanaka wouldn't even be alive, let alone streaming live today. Moved by the story and recognizing his skill, some viewers decided to tip him, sending money directly through the streaming platform. In streamer lingo, these tokens are called donations, a direct way for viewers to support someone they admire or enjoy watching. Tanaka remembered that Adachi had mentioned this feature in the guide he gave him. Apparently viewers could send cash straight to the streamer through the app, and it actually worked in real time. Tanaka was still catching his breath from the hype of receiving his first donations when he shifted focus back to the dungeon. The super chat feature had just kicked in, letting viewers directly support him with money, and even though the amounts weren't huge, the gesture hit him hard. He gave a proper, slightly awkward bow on camera, showing his appreciation and letting everyone know he'd put it to good use, getting some real food once the stream was over. That display of gratitude wasn't just for show, it sparked even more donations, creating a wave of support he hadn't expected. Tanaka's eyes welled up with tears for a brief moment, the sheer kindness of his audience fueling his drive. After thanking everyone again, he turned back to the real task, moving deeper into the dungeon. Before diving in, he reminded viewers that questions were welcome throughout the stream, keeping the interaction strong. Then he moved forward, venturing into the twisting corridors of the dungeon that he knew like the back of his hand. But today, something felt off. The usually chaotic, monster-infested tunnels were eerily quiet. For a dungeon so deep and active, not seeing a single monster so far was unusual. Tanaka pressed on, knowing that the viewers were waiting for some real action, something dramatic to keep the hype alive. Suddenly the silence shattered. A sharp, piercing scream sliced through the air, echoing across the stone walls and making it feel like it was coming from every direction at once. Tanaka immediately reacted, sprinting toward the source with lethal speed. The drone filming him struggled to keep up, shaking violently as it tried to capture his movements. His pace was insane, blinking, and the camera almost missed his leaps between craggy rocks, cliffs, and uneven ground. The terrain became increasingly rough as he closed in. He jumped from ledge to ledge, his landings precise and controlled, covering distance in moments that would have taken ordinary explorers far longer. The air grew thick and heavy, carrying a sense of unease. Monsters that usually patrolled the area were oddly still, almost tense, as if something had unsettled them. Every shadow seemed sharper, every sound more pronounced. Finally, he reached a large clearing at the end of the tunnel. There, cornered against the icy stone walls, was a female explorer trembling with fear. She was holding her sword in a defensive stance, trying to protect herself, but 3 hulking monsters blocked her path. Their size was intimidating, well over 2 meters tall, muscled and cruelly intelligent. Their teeth glinted in the dim light and low guttural growls filled the cavern, bouncing off every wall. Tanaka observed her closely. She was alone, diving solo, which in the world of dungeon exploration was extremely risky. Most explorers paired up in at least duos to handle the dangers here, especially on the middle floors where traps, mana fluctuations, and aggressive monsters could spell instant death. Even the most skilled solo explorers rarely took risks at this depth. Tanaka himself usually avoided this kind of risk but had no choice before. This girl, however, was completely exposed. A single slip could have ended her life, and the pressure from the 3 monsters was crushing. As he watched, Tanaka noticed the girl's movements weren't sloppy. She was skilled and precise, but the monsters' sheer numbers were overwhelming. They worked together, coordinating attacks, closing off escape routes, and steadily weakening her with each strike. These weren't normal dungeon mobs, these were ogres, massive demon-like creatures with high intelligence and insane strength. On the middle floors, encountering even one would be dangerous. 10 in perfect formation surrounding a lone human? That was practically a death sentence. The positioning of the monsters was especially alarming. Ogres usually resided on the lower floors, where their strength and size made them perfect guardians. Seeing them this high up in the middle floors signaled a major dungeon irregularity. The environment itself was out of balance, and the monsters were reacting in ways they normally wouldn't, which made the situation even more unpredictable. Tanaka's gaze swept the clearing. The ogres were methodically surrounding the girl, testing her limits while she struggled to parry their attacks. Their growls were low, harsh, and resonant, echoing across the cavern and amplifying the tension. The way they moved in unison, blocking her retreat and constantly adjusting to her attempts to fight back, showed their intelligence and coordination. The girl's sword slashes were fast, precise, and powerful, but with so many opponents, she couldn't gain the upper hand. Every swing was met with resistance, every dodge was a calculated risk, and every breath she took carried the weight of imminent danger. Tanaka started mapping the scene quickly, analyzing the monsters' positions and movements. Their aggression wasn't mindless, they were highly aware, almost as if they were hunting in teams, testing for weaknesses in her defenses. The cavern itself seemed designed to amplify danger. Narrow passageways funneled movement, shadows concealed their true distance, and jagged rocks created hazards where even a misstep could be fatal. In a blink, Tanaka slipped right between the monsters and the woman, scooped her up, and cleared the distance so fast it looked unreal. The ogres didn't even process what had just happened, their reaction time was cooked. By the time one of them tried to turn its head, Tanaka had already gone back in. The ogre's body didn't even fall apart immediately. For a brief moment, it stood there like nothing had happened. Then the cuts registered, its massive frame split apart cleanly, pieces hitting the dungeon floor with heavy thuds. The speed of it left even the remaining monsters frozen. Tanaka glanced down at the remains and immediately noticed the horns. They were huge. Usually when monsters were defeated, part of their body stayed behind as materials, while the rest dissolved into mana essence and got absorbed back into the dungeon. The timing on that depended on the monster type. Some vanished fast, others lingered. Ogres fell into the category where valuable parts stuck around long enough to be collected. And Tanaka remembered clearly that ogre horns sold for a pretty high price. While he was mentally clocking that, he finally realized something else entirely. He was still holding the girl, just in a more affectionate way, despite it being very awkward. The kind of awkward where both people suddenly become hyper-aware at the same time. Tanaka immediately stiffened, then carefully asked if she could stand on her own, and she nodded. As soon as she gave the signal, Tanaka gently set her down. Both of them were sweating, and not just from the fight. The air between them was thick with that uncomfortable silence that shows up out of nowhere. Tanaka took one look at her and immediately understood the situation. Her stamina was basically empty. She looked exhausted to the point where standing was already a challenge. But more importantly, there were no visible serious injuries. That alone was a relief. Trying to ease the tension, Tanaka decided to introduce himself. However, the moment he said his name, everything changed. The girl's flustered expression vanished instantly, replaced by pure shock. Her eyes widened like she'd just met a celebrity in the wild. She froze for a second, clearly trying to process what she just heard. The corpo slave sword master everyone online had been talking about. She stumbled over her words before finally managing to introduce herself as Hazno Yui. She explained that she was also a streamer and had been exploring the dungeon solo when all of this happened. As Yui checked on her battered drone, Tanaka just stood there in disbelief. Even someone he had just met by chance knew his name. That was when it really hit him. He'd gotten way more famous than he ever expected. Streaming had gone from a side thing to something massive without him even realizing it. Meanwhile, the chat was going wild. Bunch of interactions were going off and everyone was on the edge. After watching everything unfold, a bunch of viewers immediately started talking about reporting the irregular ogre spawns to the Dungeon Administration Bureau. Seeing that actually made Tanaka feel a little better. At least someone was doing something, but that didn't last long when one commenter pointed out the obvious. The Bureau probably wasn't going to help. Anything that happened inside the dungeon was technically the explorer's responsibility. That had always been the rule. Back when he was still working under his old company, their guild never stepped in either. If something went wrong inside the dungeon, you were on your own. No backup, no rescue team. Before things spiraled further, Tanaka decided to shift focus. He asked Yui how she even ended up in a situation like this. She tried to explain, but her words kept breaking apart. From what she remembered, she had been streaming near the shallow end of the middle floors. Everything was normal. Then suddenly, an ogre appeared and started chasing her. Just talking about it made her voice shake. Tears welled up in her eyes as she said she had never been anywhere near the lower floors before, so she ran and she didn't stop running. But no matter how hard she tried to escape, she somehow kept getting pushed deeper and deeper into the dungeon. By the time she realized what was happening, she was completely trapped. Her body shook as she spoke, and it was obvious how terrified she still was. Tanaka could tell this wasn't just fear, it was real trauma. Seeing that immediately reminded him of his own first time in the dungeon. Back then, he had been scared too. That understanding made it easy for him to respond the right way. He told Yui she did incredibly well, anyone else might have frozen or given up, but she kept going despite the danger. Then he reassured her. From here on out she was safe, relying on his strength to handle the remaining ogres himself. As Tanaka turned and started walking toward the monsters, Yui stood there completely stunned, watching his back as he moved forward. She couldn't believe the confidence he was showing. Tanaka meanwhile was already planning the fight. There were 9 ogres left, and compared to what he usually dealt with on the lower floors, this was honestly boring. Upper floor monsters rarely posed any challenge, which was why he normally ignored them altogether, but this time was different. His aura spread without him even trying. The pressure alone made the ogres hesitate. Fear flickered across their faces as they sensed the gap in strength. Before they could retreat, Tanaka provoked them, which was effective in every way. They roared and rushed forward, weapons raised, fully intending to crush him in one hit. Tanaka stayed calm. Meanwhile, the viewers were losing their minds, watching the monsters close in and worrying for his safety. Then the distance disappeared, and within seconds, it was over. One clean movement split an ogre straight down the middle. No effort, no wasted motion. The remaining monsters tried to coordinate, but they were too slow. Tanaka was already ahead of them. By the end of it, multiple ogres lay defeated across the floor. Taking down that many in a single fight was something only a handful of explorers could pull off. The chat exploded and compliments flooded in non-stop. Viewers spamming reactions and hype messages, completely shocked by what they had just seen. Yui, on the other hand, was silent. She was completely mesmerized. While the viewers joked about suddenly turning into maidens after watching the fight, Tanaka turned toward the last remaining ogre. This one was different, but instead of running, it chose to stand its ground. That made Tanaka pause. Understanding that the ogre has its warrior pride, Tanaka decided to respond in kind. He wouldn't hold back. He would finish this properly. As the fight began, Tanaka looked vulnerable at first because of his sheathed sword. From the ogre's point of view, it probably seemed like an opening. That illusion shattered instantly. The moment Tanaka took his stance, the pressure was overwhelming. It felt like staring down the barrel of a loaded gun. Using his signature style, Blink, Tanaka launched his attack. The ogre was strong, but it wasn't enough. The strike was so fast the ogre didn't even realize it had been cut. By the time it understood what happened, the outcome was already decided. Facing the fastest II user in the world meant the result had been sealed from the start. The final blow landed, and the dungeon fell silent. Messages flooded in, praising Tanaka and speculating that he still hadn't shown his full strength. Everyone was hyped for what he might reveal next. Tanaka immediately turned back to Yui to check up on her because she looked scared and stunned at the same time, her face turning bright red. For a second, Tanaka worried something was wrong. When she realized he was talking to her, Yui panicked and accidentally bit her tongue mid-response. After confirming she was fine, Tanaka told her it wasn't a good idea to stay there any longer. The chances of another monster showing up were too high. He gently suggested they regroup for now, but the chat of course had other ideas. Viewers started joking that Yui might be the first member of Tanaka's so-called harem. Tanaka read the comments with a blank expression, genuinely confused by what they were saying. However, his moral doesn't approve of that. Besides, he was about 5 years older. From her perspective, he was probably just another older guy. Still, he couldn't deny that Yui seemed like a good person. She might end up grateful to him later. Romance, though, wasn't even on his radar. Once they left the dungeon, he doubted they'd ever meet again. So he kept everything strictly professional. Given how intense things had been, Tanaka decided to take a short break. Since resting on stream would be awkward, he announced he was ending the broadcast for a few hours to treat Yui's injury. The viewers begged him to stay on, already imagining something else entirely. Tanaka ignored the comments and shut the stream off. The viewers were buzzing non-stop, tossing out all kinds of theories and assumptions about what had just gone down. The live chat was pure chaos. Some were hyped, some were scared, and a few were straight up roasting Tanaka for all the stuff that had happened. Even though the comments had a little bite to them, Tanaka didn't let it distract him. His focus stayed locked on one thing, making sure he and Yui got out of that dungeon alive. The cavern around them was shadowy and oppressive. Stalactites hung low in some areas, forcing careful foot placement, while the stone floor was slick with moisture in others. Every step echoed weirdly, making the tension heavier. Tanaka scanned their surroundings and quickly realized the fastest way to get out would be to smash straight through the ceiling. But he knew he couldn't just rush ahead. Yui had already been injured earlier, and there was no way she could keep up with a full-speed breakthrough without risking another collapse. Before committing to the plan, Tanaka asked her about her leg. Yui confidently assured him that she was completely healed, which gave him the green light to go for it. Still, he kept in mind that even a fully healed fighter like her couldn't match his speed. He dialed it back slightly, making sure she could keep pace without being left behind. As they started moving, Tanaka periodically checked to make sure she wasn't struggling, adjusting their speed when necessary. While moving, Tanaka casually asked Yui if she had ever teamed up with other explorers before. Guilds weren't letting her in yet, but collabs were still possible. Yui admitted she got invites fairly often, but most came from men with what she described as scary eyes. Tanaka immediately understood these were the type of guys pretending to be polite explorers, only hoping to take advantage of her being young, cute, and often alone in the dungeon. Despite their schemes, Yui always refused. Her innocent look didn't make her naive. She had strong boundaries and never fell for their manipulations. Tanaka jokingly apologized for being her first collaboration, thinking she might be disappointed to be stuck with an old man like him. Yui quickly corrected him, saying she was actually happy. Her voice rang loud in the dungeon, and the live chat went wild instantly, sending emojis and comments exploding with excitement. Realizing everyone had heard, Yui blushed hard, covering her face and giggling through embarrassment. Tanaka stayed calm, ignoring the teasing comments flooding the chat, knowing the viewers were having a blast with the interaction. He even encouraged Yui to keep it up, letting the audience ride the moment. Suddenly Tanaka froze as he caught a faint sound, something off in the dungeon's deep shadows. Every nook and cranny seemed darker than before, and the air was heavy with unease. Yui couldn't hear anything, wondering if he had imagined it, but Tanaka stayed sharp, listening intently. Moments later, a subtle rustling confirmed his instincts were right. He told Yui to follow him carefully toward the sound. She was stunned, unable to hear anything herself. Even the viewers, with volume maxed, reported hearing nothing through the high-end drone mics. Tanaka assured her that he was certain it was human voices, faint but present, and he even detected the sounds of a distant battle. This triggered memories in the live chat of explorers who had gone missing earlier, making viewers worry about their safety. Tanaka knew the situation was urgent. If explorers were under attack, immediate intervention was needed. But he also had Yui with him, meaning he couldn't rush blindly. Yui, seeing his hesitation, grabbed his sleeve and insisted they help, promising she wouldn't slow him down. Her bravery pushed him to agree, but he reminded her that if things got dangerous, she needed to retreat instantly. With that, they moved like lightning, weaving through the dungeon efficiently, keeping low and staying ready for sudden attacks. They arrived at the battle site within seconds. A group of robed monsters, dungeon sorcerers, were surrounding terrified explorers. These sorcerers hovered slightly off the ground, their robes shifting like shadows in the dim light, staves glowing with dark magic. Before they could finish their attack, Tanaka stepped in. His sword flashed under the flickering dungeon lights, and with practiced precision, he cut one of the sorcerers down instantly. The others froze, recognizing a threat far beyond their expectations. Dungeon sorcerers were dangerous, especially for swordsmen, Their magic allowed them to strike unpredictably, firing spells with flicks of their staves that couldn't easily be read like a normal opponent's movements. Each spell could be fast, wide-ranging, and precise, almost like a sudden punch or kick, making them deadly at a distance. With multiple sorcerers on the field, the odds seemed stacked against the explorers. But Tanaka's skill, speed, and tactical awareness allowed him to dominate. The live chat exploded with reactions, shocked faces, emojis, and comments praising Tanaka's insane reflexes. The other explorers, previously paralyzed by fear, stared in awe. The remaining sorcerers hesitated, their movements cautious, clearly intimidated by Tanaka's aura and speed. With each precise strike, Tanaka neutralized a sorcerer in mere seconds, demonstrating perfect timing and spatial awareness. Their staves were no match for his sword techniques, and the magic dissipated harmlessly as he moved faster than the spells could reach. The viewers were completely captivated, watching the battle unfold like a high-intensity action scene in real time. Once the fight ended, Tanaka immediately checked on Yui. But she looked shaken but unharmed, a combination of relief and awe on her face. With the immediate threat gone, he turned to check on the explorers. They were wide-eyed, trembling, and clearly traumatized, still catching their breath after being cornered by those sorcerers. Tanaka moved among them calmly, his posture nonchalant but confident. The explorers couldn't stop thanking him for stepping in. Some even recognized him, whispering that the corporate slave swordmaster they'd heard about online was standing right in front of them. Seeing them react like that, Tanaka chuckled quietly. His face might now be etched in the minds of countless adventurers. He asked them how they ended up trapped like that. The group, 5 explorers in total, had been probing deeper into the dungeon, poking into every corner. They sensed danger too late, got surrounded by dungeon sorcerers, and chaos hit full swing. The frustration was written all over their faces. They'd miscalculated the floor's dangers and got caught in the perfect trap. Tanaka reassured them with a nod, telling them to make a run for it while he dealt with the monsters. The team was stunned. No one expected someone to willingly put themselves in danger like that. One of the explorers even tried to protest, but Tanaka waved it off, explaining that he'd already faced enough sorcerers to handle this easily. There was no arrogance in his tone, just calm, unshakable confidence. Then came the real jaw-drop moment. Tanaka casually pulled a massive briefcase out of his suit. Everyone froze. Yui blinked, dumbfounded, as did the live viewers. The thing looked huge, yet it had somehow been tucked under his suit like it was nothing. Tanaka explained the suit was custom, designed to store massive items with all sorts of hidden pockets. The group and viewers alike were blown away. They were witnessing a dimension expansion item being used as everyday clothing. Dungeon items like these were rare, and Tanaka had collected an impressive arsenal over his years of dungeon dives. Each had a unique effect, some defensive, some offensive, some outright bizarre. Today he was ready to use them if needed. For old time's sake, he even remembered his corporate days. If his former boss had caught wind of these treasures, he'd try to steal them. But now wasn't the time to dwell. The sorcerers were moving. Without warning, the monsters unleashed a blazing magical attack. Flames erupted across the floor, fire sparks scattering, shaking the cavern. The other explorers froze, faces pale, certain no human could withstand it. Tanaka didn't flinch. He planted himself firmly, gripping the handle of his massive briefcase, which gleamed even under the dungeon's dim lighting. As the fire approached, he swung it. The impact was deafening, a sharp crack echoing through the cavern. The flames collided with the briefcase and shot back, doubling in intensity before slamming into the attacking sorcerers. The explosion lit up the entire area, smoke curling and sparks raining around him. Viewers gasped and dropped comments faster than ever. No one could believe a single suitcase had repelled a spell that must have been thousands of degrees hot. Tanaka lowered the briefcase, completely unbothered. His suit flared gently from the wind, his posture effortless. To everyone else, it was a miracle. To him, it was just another day. A death notice even appeared for the dungeon sorcerers, defeated by a business briefcase. The remaining sorcerers tried to regroup, but Tanaka moved with lethal efficiency. Despite their power, they screamed as he continued swinging the briefcase, forcing them to retreat and huddle in corners. Their spells flew, but the Aegis, the briefcase, was indestructible, able to withstand even the heat of a tyrant dragon. The remaining explorers stared in awe, trying to comprehend how a single man could dominate such powerful enemies with nothing but a briefcase. Meanwhile, Tanaka kept his eyes on the path ahead, ensuring the group could safely ascend. The sorcerers, desperate to escape, inadvertently blocked the Onalfi exit, forcing Tanaka to take them all down before anyone could leave. With each swing, the sorcerers fell back further, some screaming in terror for the first time in their lives. The difference in power was obvious, yet they refused to give up entirely. continuing to cast their magic weakly from a distance. Tanaka's strategy was simple: clear the path, protect the explorers, and maintain control of the battlefield. Once the path was secure, he reminded the explorers to retreat while he handled the rest. The live chat exploded with hype, disbelief, and non-stop reactions, celebrating the absurd, insane power of the corporate suit-wielding dungeon swordsman.